Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Oh, goodness sakes.
Let's start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ian, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Training salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, a little bit of sad news. President-elect Sam Owori, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Rotary International President-elect passed away in post-op surgery in Houston, Texas. So that's pretty sad, and it was totally unexpected. So anyway, they are setting up a Polio foundation in his name, and if you'd like, contributions will be made to that foundation in his name. But anyway, heart goes out to him, and the international committee will be selecting a new president-elect in the coming months, so I'll let you know when that happens and who that may be. But anyway, and then following that, though, a little bit of good news. We got a thank you card here from Phoenix. He's thanking us for a scholarship that we gave him, and for National History Day, and for all our support. So I'm going to circulate this, and feel free to read it and go from there. Oh, let's start with, sorry, back that up. Guests, who do we have here today? I'll actually have a guest, Ryan Kirker with Coast Central.
Olivia Reynolds is here. She's 2015 scholarship recipient, and we'll give a brief presentation.
I have Matthew Marshall, who will be our speaker today.
And visiting Rotarian.
Darren Engel from Tiburon Sunset.
And visiting Rotaractors. Oh, go ahead.
Erica Samuel from North Carolina.
Hey, this is hard to do.
Stan Alcock, Noon Club, filling in for Julie.
Sophie Salcedo, president of Petaluma.
Boy, I pity anybody who watches this video now. Because you're whipping around. Alex is here too, though.
Okay, Alex. Hello, Alex. Mary's here as well.
Sorry, dude.
All right, moving on. Birthdays. It was Lori's birthday. I did not see her there here though. She had a busy week. Bob Rogers was in town visiting club. That was his first little tour here, so she was at every one of those meetings helping him out. So she's done a lot of regular stuff this week. Anniversaries. Romi and Glenn is Romi.
Happy anniversary, Romi.
Happy anniversary. What'd you do?
So we had our house robbed the week before, or 2 weeks before, and that was a bummer. A couple weeks before, and so now we have cameras, and now we're in the real world. We told them our mountain bikes were stolen, and we said we thought they were worth about $900, and they came back and said those mountain bikes were actually worth $2,000 each. We said, whoo! So we went and bought ourselves 2 new mountain bikes, and we're super excited. Technology from 20 years ago to today. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! So we have these beautiful new mountain bikes, and we're completely excited. And we had a really fun. We go on a great ride, and then we get back, and it's been a wonderful day. And then all of a sudden, I look at the computer and I go, it's our anniversary! Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So we bought each other gorgeous mountain bikes, and we had a great ride, and we didn't even know that we had celebrated a beautiful anniversary.
Great story.
Hey, check for the old life.
All right, and then George is not here today, but he and Diana had an anniversary as well. So,
What's up with the screen?
upcoming events, Pedal for Polio. Like I said, Bob Rogers was just around, and full disclosure, he has yet to see the first leg of the tour, which is from Crescent City to Trinidad. So he'll be checking that out next week, and we'll see if he backs out. Just kidding. But anyway, we're going to support them on the night of the 14th at Trinidad at the City Hall out there. We're going to have a giant potluck. They're going to land there for their first stop. So we'll be joining, I believe, the Kidneyville Club and putting on a potluck for them and whatnot, and hosting that. So that'll be fun, and I'll let you guys know exactly what we'll need, and we'll get some volunteers and get out there and get to see them. One of Bob's goals for this, though, is to raise money, and the way he puts it is, if he can get 10 cents a mile from everyone in the district, that's essentially $35 from every Rotarian, which will be roughly $84,000. You take that and you use the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation match 2-to-1, and right there you're at around $240,000 for this ride alone. So it's pretty impressive for a little 4 to 5 day run. So anyway, and like I said, we're gonna donate our money from the Final Friday auction to that, and any other donations that they get would be great. And if we can help them achieve that goal, that'd be great, because Bob's a polio survivor and it's something dear to his heart. So anyway, we'll show our support, and that's kind of that. Another upcoming event, the 4th annual Heavy Neighbor Memorial Run. Charlie, do you want to say anything about that?
So August the 27th is the 4th annual Kevin Everett Memorial Run in the Arcata Forest. Health Sport's been putting that on, and this year I believe the proceeds are actually going to be going to the Bay Trail, which is really, we're really excited about that. We wanted to do something local this year, and hope you all come out.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. All right, so something always fun to talk about. I don't know if you've got your letters yet, but you will. Dues. So the board. This year, we talked about it a little bit at Firesides, and the board elected to adjust the way we do dues. Essentially, you've noticed that the meeting fee has dropped from $15 to $13. And what we've done is taken that $2 that was from the 15 and put it into the dues. And what that is a room rental fee. So the board figured that we need to pay for our space. That's the best way to do it, is to put it up front like that. So you will see a hike in dues in this first round of billing going out. So if anyone has any questions or concerns or anything around that, feel free to contact me and let me know. But anyway, that's essentially that. So, and there we are. All right, Olivia, you mind coming up and giving us your talk?
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
My name is Olivia, and I want to say thank you again for giving me that scholarship in 2015. And again this year I'll be starting my 3rd year at CSU East Bay. I'm currently a business major. I want to double major in entrepreneurship and marketing. And this year was my first year with like a real job. Like I had always been a server, but I started working at Wells Fargo thinking I should like start trying to like get into the business world and like start to kind of hopefully further my career. And everybody kind of knows it's been like an interesting year for Wells Fargo. And in that case, like a very interesting year for me too. But it taught me a lot about kind of what I wanted, and I'm realizing corporate might not be for me. And so through that, with the stress, I've also kind of started focusing a lot more on like my own self-care, doing a lot more yoga. And so between the classes I've taken and the time I've spent with Wells Fargo, this year has kind of made me think that maybe I would like to own my own yoga studio. So that's kind of like my next step. Like, of course, school is still my main focus, but I'm also kind of looking into trying to get my yoga teacher certificate license because it actually pays really well and would be really flexible with my school schedule. So next month I'll starting as a part-time nanny, and hopefully that's going to give me more time to really focus on my schoolwork and get my GPA up a little higher where I'd like it, especially because I have one more general ed class and then it's all business classes from here. Intro to financial accounting was definitely like much harder than I expected. But that's kind of been my year. So I mean, other than that, the classes weren't too bad, but that one was definitely like a challenge. I went in not realizing quite what business really was on paper. So I've learned a lot. Does anybody have any questions? No? Maybe?
Yes, well, that's really exciting. And so, anyway, I'd like to present you with a check for the scholarship, $1,500. So, yes, absolutely. And Lori, I saw you snuck in there. Where are we? You got a birthday.
Let me see. I had surprise company come in on Saturday. Friends of ours from Sacramento brought a family from France, and it was a late night Saturday night. So my birthday's Sunday. I think I took 2 naps. We came to a Brutzi's for dinner. It was very relaxing. It was an awesome birthday. Thanks. Oh yeah, and because I snuck in late, on her last day in Humboldt before going back to school in Hawaii, my daughter Kate Breyer.
All right, another fun event coming up. I'll let Erica stand up, and you want to come to the front and talk a little bit about the fun run that you guys have. Looks like you're having fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun stuff in my face. So you guys are having a run of yourself soon, so you guys know what running's about. I brought a sponsorship form for you guys in case you would like to donate to our cause. If you're not familiar with the Fun Run, we do it as an annual fundraiser for local nonprofits. This year we are doing CASA, Boys and Girls Club, Food for People, and Companion Animal Foundation. And we're hoping to organize where Companion Animal Foundation, they do adopting pets out to the people of the community, and hopefully they can bring some of the animals to run with, so we think that'll be fun. And it's going to be in Blue Lake September 10th at 10 a.m. And if you guys would like, you can team up with us and volunteer. We're going to have different stations that are going to be fun, but we haven't planned those yet, so it's still in the works. And I think that's it. You guys have any questions?
What's the date?
September 10th.
10 a.m. Yeah.
10 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Ray, do you want to?
We're nice and, gosh, we're nice and early.
We're
Hey, you're
house.
gonna go twice as long now. I'll make a long introduction. Yeah, I groan. I hear the groan on the audience. I'm actually gonna pull up some notes here. So, every young boy dreams of reaching that pinnacle in life, which is being an executive director of a joint powers authority. And this morning you actually have two in the room that have achieved that dream. One being Matthew Marshall and the other one being me. That is better than pro football or an astronaut. A joint powers authority where you get to work for every local government and have a board of elected officials is, again, the dream. Matthew is the executive director of the Redwood Coast Energy Authority, which was started a number of years ago and is made up of all the cities, all 7 of the cities, and you'll get points if you can think, remember all those in your head. The County of Humboldt and the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District. And it was originally formed to help with energy conservation, and they still do that. But they also have a big project that have touched pretty much everybody in this room except me so far. But we're coming on board in Ferndale. We're just getting electrified. So it'll be cool when we can participate. So Matthew's here to talk a little bit about the Energy Authority itself and what it does, and also the Community Choice Aggregation Project. He is, how long have you been executive director there? A number of years.
Since the end of 2010.
Yeah, so he's getting to be an old dog. An awesome bagpipe player, and a volunteer fireman up in Trinidad, and also the Trinidad Land Trust. So, say welcome to Matthew, and Matthew, you've got tons of time now.
Well, I won't use it.
Yeah, okay. No one will complain.
No one's ever been like, that was so short. I mean, you got it early. Thanks for the introduction, Greg. And you kind of covered the first part of it, the Redwood Coast Energy Authority being a joint powers agency. And as mentioned, we were formed back in 2003 to work on energy initiatives on behalf of the county and the cities of Humboldt, and that's historically been focused on energy efficiency. That's kind of been our bread and butter from the beginning. We partner with PG&E on rebate programs for businesses and residents, and like the lights in this room and all those ones out there are energy efficient LEDs that we worked with Plaza Grill to install, and so that's kind of been one of our main activities since the beginning. That's grown to include, energy planning work, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and programs to help people adopt electric vehicles. And then the big thing that we launched in May of this year is a program called Community Choice Energy. And so that's what I was really going to touch on is, what is Community Choice Energy, and why are we doing it, and how's it going so far now that we're a couple months into it. And hopefully most folks have maybe heard something about it. We've been inundating the community with radio ads and bus ads and newspaper ads, and then folks should be getting mailers, unless it's Ferndale, because Ferndale's the one community that joined a little bit later than the rest of the cities in the county. So we'll be rolling it out in Ferndale at the beginning of 2018 is the target. But for everyone else in the county, you should have gotten some legally required notices in your mail, and then you might have noticed that starting with the bill for May, that looks a little bit different. And so just want to kind of talk about what exactly is this all about and why are we doing it. So Community Choice Energy is a system that basically lets local governments or groups of local governments through a joint powers agency take on the generation component of electricity service while keeping the existing utility for transmission, distribution programs, and everything else that they provide. And so if you think of like electricity service, there's kind of 3 pieces of it. There's the generation part of where is the electricity actually coming from as far as the power plants that are producing it. There's the infrastructure that delivers it from the power plant to customers, and then there's the interface with the customers as far as the meter on your home, getting a bill in the mail, if there's any programs like the low-income programs or medical baseline discounts and things like that, energy efficiency programs. And so, the system that we've historically had here in Humboldt County is having an investor-owned utility, which is a for-profit private company that provides all those services from going out and buying the electricity. They own some generation, but mostly they buy it from power producers. They own all the infrastructure, deliver it to our homes, and then they send us a bill and deal with power outages or transferring services. In a lot of other communities, that's done by public agencies. So you've got a municipal utility or public utility district that does all those elements as far as buying power, transporting it to your home through infrastructure, doing all the billing. So the city of Ukiah, city of Redding, Trinity County, Sacramento's a big one. Those are all public utilities where a local government agency does all that. And so community choice is a hybrid of those two, where we as a local government agency, governed by our board of directors that represent each city council and the board of supervisors, go out and are responsible for that procurement part of where the energy is being generated, whether it's contracting with power producers and or eventually building our own generation. We're responsible for that piece, while the existing utility PG&E still owns and operates the infrastructure as far as delivering the power to people's homes. You still just get one bill in the mail from PG&E. They still offer all the same programs for low-income customers or medical baseline and all that. And so those things all stay the same. And it's just that generation piece, which accounts for, if you look at your typical bill, there's the natural gas part, which this doesn't relate to, and then on the electric side, it's about half is the generation piece, and then the other half is the cost of transmission, distribution, taxes and fees, and all that stuff. And the bill changed a little bit in that now those two things are separated out a little bit more distinctly, and so there's the charges for PG&E providing that transmission distribution service, and then there's the charges from the Energy Authority for the generation piece. And if people are curious to kind of say, okay, how is my bill actually working, we can walk people through that, because there's actually a line where PG&E says, this is what we would have charged you if you weren't an RCEA customer, and then you can look at what we charged you, and you can say, oh, okay, I'm saving money. So, so as far as what aspect I'll maybe dive into a little bit more is people often kind of are puzzled by like, well, wait a minute, the power lines are the same, and one thing you can opt out of this program if you want, so you can have one customer, that's getting service from us and another one that's next door and it isn't getting service for us. And people are sometimes confused, like, why aren't I still getting my electricity from PG&E, and is this just kind of a shell game? And I always use the analogy of money because that's something that we're all familiar with. And it's the grid is operated similar to like our banking system, and that it's basically kind of the infrastructure is managed collectively. And there's basically an entity called the California Independent System Operator that's the accountant for the whole system. And so it's a similar approach to like if you take a $100 bill and you go to your bank, you deposit it in your bank, and then you go to an ATM somewhere else, they don't send you that $100 bill. You take a different $100 bill or some 20s out somewhere else, and they're keeping track of, well, how much did you put in over here? How much did you take out over here? And so, we're not having to deliver an electron from, the Scotia power plant directly to your home and make sure that it doesn't mix with the PG&E electron. It all goes into the grid collectively, and you just, there's again a very rigorous and complex accounting system to make sure that the money's coming in and it's being taken out accordingly. And so, the power that we deliver to customers, and the same goes for PG&E or City of Ukiah or City of Reading, as entities serving load, that you get what your power mix counts as is not like, oh, I live next to a solar plant, so my power is solar. It's what we on your behalf, or PG&E on your behalf, has paid people to put into that collective grid that's managed for the state as a whole. And so it's again the analogy of like if it's payday and you go to the ATM and you take out your pay for the week. You don't say, oh, thank you, Bank of America for $500. It's you thank you, employer, who put in the deposit that I was able to take that money out. And so that's how it's managed from a grid standpoint, so that we're not actually trying to make sure that we get an electron to your actual home. And so as far as the system of how this works, it's a fairly new thing in California, but there's about 8 programs, soon to be some more up and running. In California so far. Marin was the first program. They since expanded to Napa and the city of Richmond as far as their program, and then Sonoma County was the second, and they actually just about the same time as we launched expanded into Mendocino County. And I say expanded, the Mendocino County chose to join their program, so it's something that each jurisdiction participating has to basically pass an ordinance to say we want to offer this program in our community. And other Bay Area communities, some cities in Southern California, and then a lot are looking at it, over Davis, Yolo County, Placer County, and there's about 1,000 of these programs across the whole country and other states where it's allowed by law, Illinois, Ohio, more recently I think New York, Massachusetts. So, one of the things is, well, okay, why are we doing this? Why are all these other communities doing it? Well, what's the appeal of it? And a big part of that is just the local control. So it's giving us local control over where our electricity is coming from and how much that part of the bill is actually costing us. And so it lets us decide how we're spending our energy dollars and control the sources and to the extent that you can, with wholesale prices being a factor, control the price of that that component of electricity service. And the other kind of big benefit, especially from sort of an operational standpoint, is that PG&E is not going anywhere. The same reliable service that they provide, as far as they've got the same amount of money and the same number of crews to fix power lines when there's a storm and things are down. And as mentioned, I'm a volunteer firefighter, and I'm quite glad that when in West Haven there's like 9 power lines down, it's like, oh, it's a PG&E guy that's got to come out at 4 in the morning to come deal with that for the rest of the morning. And so they're still providing all that. Like I said, you still just get one bill in the mail from PG&E. They still offer all the same programs to customers, and so from a customer standpoint, not much is changing. As far as the rate setting, one of our goals is to have low rates, and that's something that's been consistent. So it varies of how much of a priority that is, depending on the community that's implementing one of these programs, but at least in California, and I think in pretty much all those other states as well, the norm has been for the programs to offer somewhat lower rates than the investor-owned utility rates. And that's consistent with public power agencies that are not-for-profit public agencies. They typically have lower rates than investor-owned utilities. So as far as like how we're kind of using this program, the goal that my board set was to maximize the use of local renewable resources while still maintaining competitive rates that are at or below what people would have otherwise paid with PG&E. And so that's kind of, in a nutshell, my board said, let's focus on that is really kind of what we're trying to deliver. The rate part is obvious in that we don't want to roll out a new program. It's like, hey, here's this new government program that's going to cost you more money than you would have otherwise paid. I wouldn't be particularly popular if that was the program that I was sharing with the community. But on the local generation piece of it, using local resources has environmental benefits, and then the other big piece of it is it has economic development benefits, and we're spending millions of dollars a year on electricity, and the more of that money we can keep local in rate savings and in investing in how we spend that money to deliver service, that's dollars that we can keep here in the community and support economic development in Humboldt. And so, with those goals in mind, we've been working over the last couple of years to launch the program, and then starting in May, we rolled it out to the county, unincorporated Humboldt County, and all the cities except for Ferndale, which will be coming along. I'm not saying it's Greg's fault.
No, everything's like that except for Ferndale.
And so, I would say we're just in a few months in, but our board set rates back in January. We did our first round of power procurement and signing contracts, and so we're still in the startup phase, but we're on track. Our rates are a little bit lower, so again, we can, if you call our office, we can show folks exactly how to figure out what the difference is, and like, oh look, you saved $5. It's a small amount, but if you add it up countywide, it's about we're on track for $1.1 million in total rate savings. For between basically June and December of 2017, based off of our rates and PG&E rates for the county as a whole. So keeping $1.1 million in the community is certainly a step in the right direction, and that's kind of in line with our overall goal. To have at least about $2 million a year in customer rate savings collectively across the community. And then on the local procurement side, we got to start with what we have, and so right now there's biomass infrastructure, which uses mill waste from our local mills, is one of the resources that actually exists here in Humboldt County now. And so, to move that goal forward, we have a contract with Humboldt Redwood Company that operates the mill down in Scotia, as well as the associated power plant that takes the bark and sawdust and scraps that aren't viable for sending off to make paper, and basically they have a system there that uses that material on site to generate electricity, which powers the mill itself, but then the surplus we're buying from them, and that's about 12% of our mix, and that contract to buy power from them instead of buying from outside the area is going to be keeping millions of dollars here in Humboldt County, and then that also supports the local forest product sector, because that infrastructure is important as far as mills need somewhere to send their waste. You're not going to get a permit for a teepee burner anymore, and so they're dependent on that infrastructure to support the manufacture of wood products here in Humboldt County. And then overall, if you look at what we're providing in rate savings, what we're contracted to buy power from Humboldt Redwood Company, we've got goals to build a reserve fund to make sure that we're able to kind of buffer customers if there's rate spikes or things that come out of the blue as far as power prices. having a contingency fund to provide some insurance for the program. If you look at all those things combined and what we're spending on kind of operations and things, it's about $10 million in this first June to December of 2017 that we'll be keeping here in Humboldt County that would have otherwise left on our PG&E bills and headed down to San Francisco. And so we're excited about that because that's a fair chunk of money that we're able to keep here in the community, and that's probably going to maybe grow to 15 million next year in 2018. And so overall we're excited about the trend, and we're approaching it pretty conservatively from a fiscal standpoint, and kind of not trying to overextend ourselves. And in the long run, though, we're also interested in new projects as far as that local generation piece of looking at opportunities for solar. Offshore wind is really our biggest resource here in Humboldt County. As far as if you look at wind resources across the entire United States, the offshore resource is very good, and Humboldt County really has the best on the West Coast and really in the lower 48 states. And so it's, permitting is always an interesting thing here in California, so we tend to be a little bit behind like Europe and the East Coast. But there's definitely interest, and the state is now starting to move forward with the process to start having offshore wind be an option. And just as far as context, that would be like 10 miles off the Samoa Peninsula, so people maybe very small or not visible at all. We're not talking right on the coastline, but it's something that has been considered for a while, and now that's a possibility to develop that, and we really could be a leader in that regard because we do have some of the best wind and wave resources as well. Wave technology is not quite as advanced as the offshore wind potential. And so things like that, smaller generation systems, helping customers do solar on their own home or business is something that we're really also actively moving forward to figure out how we can support that and assist customers doing that kind of a project, to have really distributed community scale generation. And so I think as we, get out of the sort of startup phase and looking at those kinds of opportunities so we can continue to divert more and more dollars into the local economy as far as how we spend our energy dollars. So that's kind of an overview of the program and why we're doing it. And again, the bottom line is it's really giving us local control, and we're having affordable rates that are a little bit below PG&E's, and we're able to partner with them to have the same reliable service that they've always provided. So from a customer standpoint, it's an undisruptive change that has kind of very positive impacts sort of upstream in the whole community. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
So, there's someone else. Go ahead.
I was wondering what PG&E thinks about all this. And then second question is, for homeowners that have solar installations, are you actually providing incentives for them to sell energy to you?
Yeah, so that's the second one. So yes, we basically, if you anything you're putting back into the grid, we actually pay a premium price for. So it's like the retail rate plus a penny, so we add a little kicker to that. And then if folks over-generate more than they use, we'll actually buy that at the retail rate, where we do. PG&E technically will do it at sort of this, it's like this wholesale sort of short run cost, which is practically giving it to PG&E because it's not a very high number at the moment. But and so we wanted to actually encourage people if they wanted to, if they produce more, it's like, hey, great, we'll buy that from you at actually a premium price, not at a wholesale discount price that doesn't acknowledge the benefits of it being renewable energy. And so yes, we're one of the things we want to do is help people do solar and have the rate structure that incentivizes that. On the PG&E question, so they're legally required not to mind us doing it, and so we don't have when the law was first coming out many years ago, PG&E actually said, hey, this is great. They don't make money off of buying wholesale power and marking it up and reselling it. They charge overhead, and that's one of the reasons people say, how are you cheaper than PG&E? And it's like, well, look at their skyscraper and their marketing budget and their jet that they fly up here, and and we've got a good relationship with them, so I don't want to be bagging on PG&E, but we have lower overhead than them. I don't get paid what the CEO of PG&E makes, and so there's margins there, but they don't make shareholder profits off of reselling electricity because the state doesn't let them. They get a return on investment in infrastructure, and so when the law first came out, they said, yeah, this doesn't threaten our business model. We don't make money off of that. Our shareholders aren't impacted if somebody's buying electricity from somebody else. And like for example, Humboldt State University participates in a program that large commercial entities can be a part of called Direct Access, and so they haven't bought electricity from PG&E for years. They get it from a third party, and again, PG&E hasn't turned their back on HSU as a partner or anything like that. And again, HSU has been doing it because they get lower rates by going out in the competitive market, like we're able to do on behalf of the whole community now. And so they did it. They supported it when the law came out, and then when Marin was the first to actually launch it, whatever happened between then and the leadership, they weren't so excited about it, to put it mildly, and they had a pretty aggressive campaign. Bordering on what the state ultimately decided was kind of an illegal campaign to oppose it. The state kind of said, hey, they put in code of conduct to say utilities can't, have these subversive call banking saying your power's going to go out, which is totally untrue, and all this stuff. And so they got in trouble for that. And then, and they actually at one point they sponsored some legislation that was trying to make it harder to do this, and that failed. And I think they had a coming to Jesus moment where they're like, we keep opposing this, and we're just making ourselves the bad guys, and then we keep losing after spending millions of dollars on this stuff. And now, all these people in these communities are getting a negative taste in their mouth. And they've since had, a change in leadership as far as the CEO, and they've taken a very different approach, both, with Sonoma and with all the other programs that have launched since, including us. And so I would say, our experience has been, they've been, great partners, and not just kind of going along with it because the, state says they have to, which, is good to ensure that, because it's something that benefits communities to not have just a monopoly system where a for-profit company has dibs on everything. But the folks that we work with have been great. Both the folks in San Francisco that are kind of the leads on this overall program, and then the local PG&E folks are we've partnered with them for years, and they've been completely supportive and great partners. And so sometimes PG&E gets set up as the opponent in these, but really they're a key partner. We couldn't do it without them. They're the ones that are operating the grid and managing it. And again, they have the same resources to do that, so it's not like they're, oh, now we don't have enough money to send a crew, that they're getting the same exact line item. Because it was already two different line items, there's the generation line and there's the T&D line, and the way the rates for those are set at the Public Utility Commission were already separate and different and managed independently, so there's no impact to their funding or ability to deliver the infrastructure side, which is again where they make their shareholder profits anyway. So it's a long answer to but PG is a good partner, and we're excited and have had a good time working with them. So.
How big is your organization? How many employees do you have?
We've got, counting interns, we kind of have an intern program, so about a third of this. We've got about 30 staff total, counting those interns. And a lot of those folks are actually not working on this program in particular. They're on our energy efficiency programs. We have field teams that go out to homes and businesses and help people assess their projects. And so that's actually the most number of staff are actually the ones that are going out and talking to customers about energy efficiency. And our office is just in Old Town. It's where Windsor and Kelly used to be, right behind the Lost Coast Brewery, on the corner of 3rd and H Streets. So people can walk in anytime and say, hey, show me how to read my bill now that there's this new line on it. So.
You sent your initial mailing to have people opt in. What if they didn't opt in and they want to opt in?
Yeah, so it's an opt-out program, and so the way that the state set it up, and this is the way the law was written, is that we as the local not-for-profit public agency, locally controlled by elected officials, option becomes the default. And so instead of having people have to opt into it, we basically, if somebody moves into Humboldt County or in this first round of enrollment, if people don't want to opt out, then they just automatically switch over. And so if you didn't, so you can opt out in this first period, or you can opt out down the road. And so it's not something where, if 5 years from now we raise rates because we've got a different board and they, don't care about rates or whatever it is, folks can opt out down the road. So we're beholden to deliver something that people don't want to opt out of. But you can, if somebody did opt out, they can also opt back in later. You can't flip back and forth every month, because then it's hard to manage a program if customers are going back and forth. So PG&E says, hey, if you opt out, you've got to stick with PG&E for a year before you would opt back into RCEA. And so, but the choice ultimately is in the customer's hand, as far as you can always go back to just having the generation piece come from PG&E if you want, or again, if you chose to stick with PG&E, you can down the road say, maybe actually I do want to save a little bit of money on my bills. I'll opt in. That's an option too. So.
Is there a plan to tie in the gas side of it?
The law that enables us to do this doesn't include gas, so it's not something that, so it's not really an option to do that. There are programs where third parties can provide gas service, and that's an existing program. I don't want to, be too critical. It's an option where, like electricity, you can go and have a different entity provide the gas, and PG&E will still deliver it to your home. So it's structurally kind of similar. And it actually works well, I can say it works definitively well for larger organizations. Like there's an entity called SPUR, which I believe is a joint powers agency, that does it on behalf of primarily schools. And so they work with all the schools to go out and get gas at a lower rate than just PG&E's pass-through cost. Again, PG&E doesn't make money by marking up gas. They just go out and buy it and provide it to us. And so sometimes going out in the more competitive market can lower that. There's other companies that offer that kind of service to residents and businesses. I can't speak to what they're like, if their rates are going to be consistently better. And the one thing I'll say that's been unfortunate is sometimes their sales folks will go door to door and be a little aggressive and maybe a little disingenuous about kind of representing PG&E. Or they won't say I'm with PG&E, but they'll say, hey, this is this thing. And we get a lot of calls of people complaining and say, hey, this is a scam. And it's like, well, it's not a scam, but just like a car salesman can kind of be shady. Sometimes there's an article in the Journal actually about somebody kind of getting mad because some of these guys came to their door and they're like, you're not with PG&E, and so unfortunately we get calls because people say, hey, you guys know about energy, is this a scam? And it's a service that's out there, but there's a number of companies, and door-to-door sales tactics aside, I think you just have to look at what each one of them provide and and see what the deal is, because sometimes it's like a lower rate and then it maybe goes up after a little while, and and so it could be a little bit hard to navigate the terms and conditions of that. So I don't want to say it's not necessarily a way to save money, but it's someone would have to do their kind of due diligence, but it's not something that we can. We in theory could set up a program to be one of those third-party providers. We haven't really talked about that as a program option because we've got a lot on our plate at the moment, but it's something that could happen down the road. Any questions? Yeah.
Where do you stand in potentially developing some sort of property assessed clean energy program? Are you guys into that?
Yeah, so we had looked at doing, so there is, I think, if you want to do property assessed clean energy financing, which is something that Sonoma launched. Sonoma does a lot of stuff. That is actually now there's a number of statewide programs, and there's several that are available now in Humboldt County that we're not directly involved in administering. So, this is a program that basically, if you want to do, let's say a solar array on your house, you can finance it through a property tax assessment, like a voluntary just on your home, so it's not impacting your neighbors. Property tax assessment where you repay that financing when you pay your property tax bill, and there's some potential advantages of that in that it doesn't count as a loan. So let's say you're a business and you want to, you've got a line of credit for your business and you've got a great roof that you can put solar on, and you're like, hey, this is going to pay for itself because it's easy to do the math of here's how much the solar array costs. If you finance it, here's what your loan payment's going to be. Here's your utility bill savings, and you can make it a positive asset. But maybe you want to have that line of credit available to manage your business needs, and okay, so it's a way where a business could say, okay, we can finance it, and it's attached to the property as far as the assessment is on the property, and so you can move that forward. Or if let's say you're a retired person that wants to do it, and you've got a fixed income, and maybe you co-signed on your kid's house, and so you're leveraged even if you're not paying the bill or something like that, as far as your ability to borrow. And again, because it's attached to the house, and it can potentially go with the house if it sells, just as this an ongoing payment. So that's, if you haven't heard of what property assessed clean energy or PACE financing is. But there's a number of programs that are now operating that cities have approved to operate. So depending on what city or if you're in the county, there's different options available, but there's I think in pretty much every jurisdiction now there's at least one program available. And again, these are once people realized that this was something that would work, there was a number of statewide joint powers agencies that do, you know, government financing and things like that, to say, hey, we could partner with our members, or, you know, and offer this to communities, rather than having to kind of have every county do their own little one-off design. And so, so we're not moving forward with developing a local program, just because, like, when we looked at it at our size, like, the rates we'd be able to kind of come up with if we were going to do a Humboldt County program wouldn't have been competitive with the larger kind of statewide ones, just because of economies of scale. So yeah, and our we can get, you know, if you're interested, we've got a list of, like, here's how you can compare and what the terms are for all the different, you know, program offerings. So. All right, well, thank you.
Oh, I got one. So, I don't know if this is true or not, so tell me, do you have the ability to choose what kind of electricity you get when on your bill? I mean, like, I want all solar, or I want all...
Yeah,
how does that work?
so to some extent, so, you know, our base mix, and one of our goals is to have a little bit more renewable energy, lower fossil fuel content than PG&E, no nuclear power, which is a decent chunk of the current PG&E mix. And so our standard mix is, you know, that chunk of biomass is like 12%, and then wind and solar. And so the renewable chunk is, you know, the California qualified renewable is about 40%. There's another 40% that's like large hydro, which isn't fossil fuel based. It doesn't count as renewable in California. But and then there's another 20% or so that's just system power. That's just the spam, you know, power that's off the grid, which is mostly natural gas, and large hydro is kind of what's in that mix, but it's like you don't really know exactly. It's just whatever, you know, is floating around uncommitted on the grid, basically. Yeah. And then, but if you want to opt up and say, hey, I want to, you know, have all my electricity coming from renewable sources, wind, solar, biomass. That's what we currently have in the mix. You can do that, and it's a penny a kilowatt hour more to opt up, and so that's something where you have to, you know, actively opt up. Which a penny kilowatt hour, you know, for a home, it's, you know, a few bucks a month depending on how much energy you use. I mean, I think for me it's like $6 or something like that a month to opt up to 100% renewable energy if you want to do that. And, you know, we've talked about, like, Marin actually has, like, oh, if you want 100% local solar, they've got a different program for that. You know, so you can have a bunch of options. You know, we don't want to get complicated. Again, it's like starting a utility isn't the easiest thing in the world, so we wanted to keep it kind of simple. So we've got two. Where, hey, if you want to opt up to 100% renewable, you can do that. And it's a little bit of a price premium, but not too much.
And then that choice to opt up is supporting the renewable.
Yeah, and so, you know, and so for example, the city of Arcata voted to basically opt up all of their city facilities, so the wastewater treatment plant, and, you know, and that's you know, a decent chunk. So now we're like, oh, okay, we're gonna have to go and say, hey, you know, solar plant, we need to buy more power from you guys, because, you know, PG or Arcata chose to make that decision. And so, you know, the more people that enroll in that, and then we go out and in our procurement process, you know, add more renewables to meet that demand. And so, thanks.
Great, thank you. A donation in your name to the Wheelchair Foundation. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for speaking today. Yeah, great. All right, it is raffle time. Who's doing the raffle? All right, there we go.
Okay, so we'll have like the Ferndale people take the ticket.
We'll do it slowly behind the times.
Exactly. Okay, today, what's today's jackpot? 80 today? 80. Wow. 80 bucks.
Wow.
If you didn't buy a ticket, you're totally out of luck. Okay, the first one, 816262. Come on, who's got it? Not me. Come on, 816262. I'll help ship your car to Hawaii. See what you get. Who will be the big winner? Well, you get $5. And the second one is 816224. Oh. There he is. So close.
still guess.
You don't even get $5. Get $5. You got it. I got $4. We have to sponsor your table.
All right. So that's our program for this week. We're at 5 minutes early, so we're about 5 minutes early, so that's our program for this week. Feel free to stick around and listen to music and chat. As Rotarians, thought this quote was perfect for us because we are all creative and visionary in our own way. Vision is the art of seeing what is invisible to others. So with that, thank you for being here, and we'll see you all next week.